Hello once again, and welcome to Herd Immunity News. I'm Marcus Botza. Today we have the great pleasure in welcoming back Mr. Giovanni Di Stefano, or better known as the Devil's Advocate. We have a fascinating case that's sweeping around the world at the moment, and we've asked Giovanni to give us his expertise in these matters. Russell Brand is a very, very famous comedian, and so far, 5 women have come forward with different allegations of a sexual nature. These go back to 2003. But without further ado, let me just say, Giovanni, how are you, sir?
I'm feeling good. Everything is fine. I'm in southern Italy. I will be in Rome on Thursday, and I will be in Belgrade early October, and then back home to Monaco shortly thereafter, after my meeting with the Serbian government.
Okay, well, it's good to know that you're an active and busy man in many ways, but what are your impressions so far about the Russell Brand case? If you could just give us an impression of what's going on right now with Brand.
Well, this is an extremely dangerous situation that the country has got into, because the media have made him the prime target of allegations that are unproven, unfounded, and uncertain. Their historic sexual offences are extremely dangerous. Under the old Sexual Offences Act 1956, there was a statute of limitations on certain offences. For example, buggery being one of them. There was a 2-year statute period there. And that's because, if people remember their legal history, the Lord Byron, who was accused of that by his wife when he found out that he was cheating on her, and he had to run away to Italy, mercifully, where he wrote the bulk of his poems. And there's a wonderful hotel called the Lord Byron Hotel in the center of Rome there. In those days, it was a hanging offence, so it wasn't a joke there. But, Parliament decided that there should be a statute. Now, under the new Sexual Offences Act, that has disappeared. And in my view, the allegations that Mr. Brandt is facing are extremely serious allegations there, but they are as yet totally without foundation, totally without merit, and totally questionable. Because the first question that, when I saw this in the newspaper, why the hell did these ladies not go to the police? This is a police matter. It's not a newspaper matter. Do we know if they were paid anything? Is there an incentive? Just to give you a small, for your viewers, in the Ian Brady and Myra Hindley case, Smith, for example, the one that gave evidence against them, and without his evidence, it would have been hard to convict. You find it hard to believe, hard to convict Brady and Myra Hindley. He had an agreement with the press that if they were guilty, he got £1,000. If they were innocent, he got nothing. So that gives you an indication with regard to the value of evidence. My view, it is a dangerous thing, and I have a solution for this in due course.
Okay, well, thank you for putting that evidence sort of forward of those previous cases in relation to Brand. But this information all came out, Giovanni, through a Channel 4 dispatches program that was being made about Russell Brand, where actually women, previous partners of his, were contacted. And obviously they claimed to have spent 4 years in the making of the show and putting it together. Also, the Sunday Times did an expose on Brand without any of these women actually going to the police, though it is believed, as of today, which is September the 19th, 2023, one woman has actually come forward and she has given evidence to the police. So where does it go from there, in your opinion?
Well, the police have to evaluate the evidence. They have to take everything into consideration. One of the most important things to take into consideration is, out of the 5 people, why only one chose to go to the police, but it only takes one in any case there, and whether there's any value in the evidence. Remember that Crown prosecutors are bound by a code of conduct, and that code of conduct is found in the 3rd supplement of Archbold, and it's one hell of a It's nearly the whole damn book. It is there. One of the most important aspects is there a realistic prospect of conviction? Because we don't put people through the mill just to see wagwan, as they say. We don't do that there. You know, we have to be able to prosecute people, knowing that in America, for example, it's the best evidence rules that apply. It doesn't apply in England any evidence you know, applies. So the police have to now take this forward. But remember, it is the police at this stage.
Yes.
We do not operate a European system where the CPS are involved in the investigation. We don't operate that in the United Kingdom. In Italy, we do. In Italy, the police arrest, hand over to the magistrate, and same in America, the district attorney or the assistant DA will get involved, but not in the UK.
So these allegations have come about through the creation of a piece for television. The Sunday Times is reporting on the back of the Dispatches, the Channel 4 program, the Dispatches. Many people are calling this a witch hunt. These cases so far, from what we can see, don't have any DNA, or they don't have any documentary evidence that have been put forward. I mean, it seems very unlikely that this may even get to court, and some people are saying this is a complete waste of police time.
Well, it is a complete waste of police time. And if you're telling me that, which I didn't know, that the Dispatches program took 4 years to make that, why the hell didn't those people go to the police during that period? That's another factor which the prosecutor, because remember, the police investigate, the Crown prosecute. Before they can charge anybody, they have to get permission from the CPS. And it seems to me reasonably unlikely, especially after the Kevin Spacey episode. Freddie Starr, for example, was bailed 4 times, arrested 4 times. They destroyed that man's career. Cliff Richard, you know, who I know very, very, very well there, was absolutely devastated with the allegations. All of this, Marcus, stems from Operation U-Tree. And here's something in the exclusive. Now, I dealt with a person that was subject to U-Tree, a man, an American English pop star and pop mogul. It doesn't matter his name, you know that. But he was subject to that instead of Jimmy Savile. Did you know that there are 111 names on the list of Operation U-Tree? And guess who's got that list? I give you one guess, because I was involved in the investigation with my client. So I know all the people that are alleged to have committed. And when I look at through some of the names, you know, even now, it is completely unbelievable. We've had Rolf Harris prosecuted. Incidentally, I met Mr. Harris at Wandsworth. So, you know, we corresponded. And the only thing he was interested in was, can they deport me? Because remember, he wasn't a British citizen. And under the UK Borders Act, you have to be deported if you have a sentence of a year or more. So he then went off to Lincoln or Stafford prison. There we corresponded. I gave him my advice, and he stayed in this country. Max Clifford, a good friend of mine, you know, we were in Marbella, you know, just not sort of a couple of years before. Both of us had a little, situation. I met him as well. I don't know, Marcus. Let me tell you, and the viewers understand. If you have placed your hand on a lady or man's bottom or touched her leg, that is a sexual assault. Now, I don't know you, but I don't know whether 30 or 40 years ago, I'm 68 now, you know, whether I ever inadvertently or advertently ever touched someone. But that is a criminal offense, and it can be prosecuted, and it has been prosecuted in the past. One of the oldest paedophiles is over 101 years of age for a sexual assault committed probably before I was even born. It is an absurd situation, my friend. It is completely ridiculous. But then we have a leading case on that, which I sent you yesterday.
Yes, I mean, there are cases that will be brought in relation to defence for Mr. Brand, and you did send me the case. And you can touch on that just now, please, Giovanni, and bring it to our viewers and listeners in relevance to specifically Mr. Brand and the allegations.
Well, for Mr. Branton, anybody who faces historic sexual offences,
Right.
There's a case called RV SELWYN B, which, you know, I'm sure that Mr. Butler will share with the viewers. We'll put on at least the front page there so you can research it. What that basically said was this: it was the Lord Chief Justice. He said, look, you know, Mr. SELWYN B, everything was done correctly at trial. No one can make any complaints about how this trial has been conducted. The judge got it right, the prosecution got it right, the defense got it right, the witnesses got it right. He may be guilty, may not be guilty. However, there is a lurking doubt because it's too long ago.
Yeah.
Far too, these historic cases have to be dealt with on a one-to-one basis. All the things put together, although it may be unfortunate for the victims, unfortunate for, you know, the applicant, unfortunate for justice, the conviction is quashed. Now, you know what the government did? The government placed a bloody restriction, a red R on that transcript. So nobody, no lawyer could ever find that transcript to use in cases as a precedent to stop a trial, except for one person. And who do you think that one person was?
Your good self.
That it was yours truly, my good self. You know, I said to hell with you. I don't give a damn about your restrictions, and I used it in a person who had, you know, 3 trials of sexual offences. One of which was I was too late because that had already been done and he was convicted. But the other 2 were stopped as a result of that there. And I say to all the practitioners that listening, all the lawyers, the English lawyers there, please, you know, if you have clients that are facing sexual historic offences, please look at that case there and bring that to the attention of the courts, because, you know, the prosecution can be stopped either at the magistrate's level or at the Crown Court. You can make an application to stay the indictment there. That is how and it is not fair to keep people years and years and years, because as I said to you, Marcus, I don't know 40, 50 years ago whether I ever I don't think I did, but I you know, I couldn't swear on it.
Exactly. And this case goes back to 2003. And ironically enough, so do the allegations. They go back to 2003. And just for our American viewers, or for anyone wanting a little bit insight into the law, there are no statute of limitations for crimes of this nature. There are for things like debt recovery. I believe it's 6 years in the United Kingdom. There's a statute of limitation on debt. But for
that's
crimes
a civil offence. That's
a civil offence.
Civil
Yeah,
matter,
correctly.
But generally speaking,
this is criminal law.
It's a civil matter. Generally speaking, Marcus, on crime, there is no statute because you have no constitution. We have in Italy a constitution, so we do have statutes except for murder, terrorism, and high treason. They're the offences that we do not have limitations, but all of them.
Yes.
And it all stems back in the European that if you were more than 20 years and a day away from your country, that was punishment enough.
Yeah, well, there we are. Many people might say that about living in the UK these days, that has come to the same situation. It's Dantes Inferno here at the moment. And look, if I've made comparisons on the Herd Immunity News website and looking at the behaviours of Mr. Joe Biden and also the behaviour and the contents on Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, if we put these two together in the media and how they've been reacted to by the media, we see that one, in the case of Mr. Brand, he's already been judged in the court of opinion, as far as I'm concerned, with the narrative used that he's a sexual predator. He's groomed a girl at 16 years of age that the BBC were ferrying back and forth in a car. Yet no one said anything from the BBC at the time. Giovanni. They said nothing about this to the police or anyone else. They've got quite a track record when it comes to allegedly covering up for their stars or celebrities' misbehaviour. Let's just put it that way. But see, if we look,
Diana situation, they've covered up a lot.
They have, of course they have. And if we look at the Biden situation, where we have footage of him touching youngsters. Now, if you, by your definition of touching someone in a misappropriate manner, that is sexual abuse. We'll look at all the footage that we have, for example, on Mr. Joe Biden, and there's allegations against Brand. One, in the case of Biden, nothing is said about this in the press. It's all completely ignored. Can you see that the public, millions of them, have grave concerns over the way this has been reported?
Well, I do, and I wrote about it on Twitter and Facebook there. I made it crystal clear that this man has been convicted. Never mind about being convicted, hasn't even been interviewed. We don't know what he said. It is extremely dangerous. Some years ago, and I'm going to write to Alex Chalk again after this interview there, I actually believe that it is high time that all all people who face an indictment in the magistrates or in the Crown Court should be Mr. X or Mrs. X or that. They should not be identified under any circumstances whatsoever because of the prejudice.
Yes.
And there is a precedent for that, my dear friend. And you know what that precedent is? And you know which lawyer had it? Can only be one. The Royal blackmail case of Ian Strachan, when he was accused of blackmailing a member of the royal family. And who was his lawyer? You're looking at him. It was me. Now, why is it that in that case, all the witnesses was A, B, C, D, E? You know, we got so confused that I didn't know whether my backside was on my head or my head was there. When none of us in the court then knew a damn thing, because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and even the prosecutor on a couple of occasions got it wrong because it's difficult. So if they can do that, and you still don't know who the royal is there, and I'm, you know, and contrary to popular belief, I do comply with the code of conduct. And you know, if you want to know who the royal and what went on, you'll have to watch my series Royal Blackmail, which is in pre-production at the moment there. But if they can do that, Marcus,
yes,
on an allegation of something within the royal family, disguising even witnesses so you can't associate that, why the hell can they not do it with Russell Brand, with, you know, with Cliff Richard, with Freddie Starr, Kevin Spacey, who was acquitted? He still hasn't got his career back, but you know, he was acquitted.
Can I just jump in? You mentioned the Lord Chancellor, Alex Chalk. And for anybody that doesn't know, in the United Kingdom, we have a Lord Chancellor. So basically, he is the Secretary of State for Law. Have you had some correspondence with him recently?
Yes, I have. I've been in correspondence with him over an IPP case, an old Section 225 of the Criminal Justice Act. These offences that people commit silly things, and they used to get a life sentence, you know, for public protection. Those were abolished years ago, but you still have 2,000 or 3,000 people in jail sitting there. So there has been correspondence between me and him on that matter, and may I say successfully as well.
Yes, I mean, I think a lot of people will be contacting him in relation to Russell Brand and the treatment that he's been receiving in the press, and I take it at a guess, his defence will obviously bring this point up. I mean, in the public, he's spoken out against the lockdowns. He's spoken out against adverse reactions from medications that happened during the lockdown period. He's spoken out against the war in Ukraine. He's spoken out against the power of indemnity that large pharmaceutical companies have. He's spoken out about the Biden family. He's spoken out about many other politicians linked to the war, the funding of the war, and slush funds. He's been, people have come out and spoke up for him. People like Tucker Carlson, his sister-in-law, Kirsty Gallagher of GB News, Joe Rogan, the #1 podcaster in the world, Andrew Tate as well, who is also similarly accused of sexual wrongdoings. And it seems to be a trend that if the establishment don't like you, the sexual allegations seem to be, you know, a very easy card to play.
It's an easy card to play because it's hard to defend. As I said, I cannot remember 50 years ago. I simply cannot. I wouldn't know how the hell to plead because I don't think I did anything. Sure. But even if I did, I'm not sure that there was any malintentions. But under the Sexual Offences Act now, the new one, I think it's 2003, you don't need bad intentions. You just need to, it's a per se statutory offence, like speeding. A doctor that goes more than 30 miles an hour to save a person's life still has penalty points. You know, it's mitigation, yes, but it's they're statutory offences. And these are extremely dangerous. Now, Alex Chalk is a really nice guy. And the difference between him and Dominic Raab was a perpendicular ponce that knew no law at all. That Chalk is actually a practicing barrister that not only understands the law from the defence and the prosecution, but the consequences of the thereafter. And that is what, you know, one has to do. We have a culture today a very dangerous culture, not just in England, worldwide, where people, because they've got no future, they have no hope, no nothing, you know, the youngsters, they
Yes.
don't give a damn. And for them, prison don't mean shite, means nothing. And
Yeah.
that is the situation that needs to be addressed at source.
Indeed. I mean, you give some very good advice. You gave Herd Immunity News viewers some very good advice in the form of ABC. A is accept nothing. B is believe F all. And C is check everything. And that's what people should really do in this case.
ABC, that's my guiding policy. It's, you know, it's kept me sane, it's kept me alive, it's kept me that. Check everything. Everything has to be checked. It's the most. And in the case of Brandt, what can you check? It's one word against another. If they like you, the jury, it's fine. If they don't, they don't. Spacey could have gone either way.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't because he was famous. You know, the evidence could have gone either way. You either believe. So the other factor under Italian law here, if I make a complaint against you and that complaint is not upheld, I'm prosecuted for making a false complaint, because the people who accused Kevin Spacey of that must be liars, because he was acquitted.
Sure. I mean, it looks like more and more women.
Pure logic. They must be liars.
I was going to say, Giovanni, in the last, we've got 5 minutes or so left together. It looks like more and more women might start coming out the woodwork. There'll be opportunities to go into the mainstream media and the press and sell their stories. What do you make of the future for this case? Because it could go on for years.
Well, it can do, but there's also another influencing factor which we haven't touched on, and that's the criminal cases compensation scheme. Right. If I make an allegation that you have beaten me up, whether you have or not, I can make a claim on the criminal that, and I can, without even you being arrested, you can get up to 16 grand from them just for making a complaint, up to, you know, there. So there is an incentive. I'm not saying that these women are liars.
No, we're not saying that Brandt is guilty or innocent.
The whole point is to test the evidence. But should the evidence be tested under these circumstances? In my view, no. If they'd have come forward early, if there's any evidence whatsoever that they said something to someone and they went to the, well, they were scared, because people sometimes are scared of going to the police. Why would you go to the police, for example, and report Pablo Escobar? I mean, that could be seriously complicated in those days.
Sure.
There, and nothing would happen. So that, but he's no Pablo Escobar. He's Russell Brand. You know, he is a comedian.
Looking at Brand and moving forward, more women come forward, more allegations in the press. These things take the same nature. There isn't any film footage. There's no documentary evidence. There's no DNA testing. Is this just going to be a life of hell for Brand for the next couple of years? Does he just have to get used to it, that he said something that the establishment don't like?
It is, but he can't. I mean, it's too late. It's too late. Well, that incident that he had with Jonathan Ross and everything, and Sachs and everything, that they didn't like that very much there, you know, but that's not a criminal offense. What they, you know, what they.
Piers Morgan's jumped on this. I'm sure you've met Piers Morgan.
I know Piers Morgan of old. I was going to do a show with him, but I decided otherwise. Because he is actually, I know him really quite well from the Daily Mirror times there and everything. So it would be unfair for me to like criticize him or me. So we decided not to do it there. But you know, I don't regret that at all. Piers Morgan has to make himself known. He has to make himself wanted. So he will jump on something like that. Sure. But as far as I'm concerned, and the law is concerned, you know, we have a rule of law. Mr. Brandt is guilty of nothing, and he's to be treated with the utmost of respect in accordance with the rule of law in a democratic society.
And just to the last couple of minutes, the biggest element of this story seems to be the 16-year-old Giovanni that claims that she was groomed by Brandt. Now, she said that she had sex with him when she was 16, but she's also saying that she rekindled a relationship with him later when she was 31 years of age. It seems quite strange that someone that was raped and molested would actually go back to someone when they were 31 for more.
Well, it's not a Stockholm syndrome that we're looking at. And 16 is still the age of... I mean, America, we have a different situation. In some states, it's 21. Some states, it's called statutory rape. Doesn't matter whether you knew or not. You should have known. You will be prosecuted for rape if you have sex with someone under 18. So many men check IDs before they do anything, because it's very, very that. But in England, we don't have that. 16 is the age of consent. Unfortunately, in my view, it should be,
Well,
you know,
the Sunday, I put a bit more context
18,
on that. I put a bit more information. Sorry, that Giovanni, that the Sunday Times wrote or recorded that the girl had said that she punched Brand in the stomach to get him off. But they're trying to infer that this was.
Well, we don't know that. There's no
That's
evidence. You know, I mean, like, there's just simply, this is the SELWYN B case again.
Yes.
You know, everything may be done, but there's a lurking doubt. Why the hell would you not complain to the police? Or at least, if you didn't complain to the police, why go back 16 years later for more? If that's what he did to you when you were 16, why on earth would you want to go back? But this is all stuff to be tested,
Sure.
and I don't think we should get into even the testing stage.
No. Well, this will go to court.
Mr. Brand does not, in my view, if I was prosecuted.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it might not, but in my view, if I was reviewing this as a member of the CPS, there is insufficient evidence to warrant a prosecution, simply because of its historic, you know, there's no evidence, no DNA. It is simply one word against another, and that is not the code of conduct of prosecutors in accordance with their own rules and regulations there. And that's covered in Archibald 30, you know, the third supplement, the code of conduct, so people can read what that is there. And it is very strict. You are not allowed to go fishing. Fishing expeditions are for fishermen, not for lawyers.
I think on that note, unless you've got anything else to add, we'll conclude there, Giovanni. How does that sound?
That sounds, you know, great. Thank you very much for having me. I hope that I've made it clearer, you know, exactly the situation that people, not just Brandt, but people face, and there are other people who we face is similar. The case of Are We SELWYN B is vital for all lawyers and people to look into that. And I urge upon lawyers not to be afraid of the government and the restriction on that there, because I don't give a damn, and the law is the law. You have to play it fairly. There's, you know, we have far too much intellectual dishonesty in the Court of Appeal. We don't want that to spread like a cancer, like a pandemic, down to prosecutions and the lower courts. So far, so good. But prosecutors must only prosecute if it's in the public interest and if there is sufficient evidence, more than sufficient evidence, to warrant a conviction. Otherwise, they have to drop it. And that's that.
Well said, and thank you for that summation. All that remains for us to do at Herd Immunity News is to thank Mr. Giovanni Di Stefano, or the Devil's Advocate, very much for coming on the show. We will leave all the links to Giovanni, to his work, to his website, and to his future projects. But once again, thank you very much indeed, Giovanni Di Stefano, for appearing on Herd Immunity News.
Thank you also. I'm obliged.